Assalamu alaikum. All right, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I hope inshallah everybody is doing wonderful. We are doing Surat AlBalad today bi'idhnillah. So let's go ahead and start actually with the surah fact. So this is a Makki surah. The title of it is The Struggle is Real, right? How many of you can resonate with that? The struggle is real. And we're going to see why that's the name of it. It's a Makki surah, and the themes and the objectives in the surah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about the sanctity of Mecca and the relationship with the Prophet ﷺ with the city of Mecca. We're going to be speaking about the parent and child relationships with Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son, but also in general the relationship of a parent and a child. The struggle, the natural state of all human beings, and we're going to also speak about the financial accountability and the praiseworthy struggle. So there's two types of struggles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about in the surah, and we'll talk about them inshallah. Let's go ahead and listen to the actual surah with my favorite sheikh.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا أقسم بهذا البلد وأنت حل بهذا البلد ووالد وما ولد لقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد أيحسب أن لن يقدر عليه أحد يقول أهلكت مالا لبدا أيحسب أن لم يره أحد ألم نجعل له عينين ولسانا وشفتين وهديناه النجدين فلاقتحم العقبة وما أدراك ما العقبة فك رقبة أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة يتيما ذا مقربة أو مسكينا ذا متربة ثم كان من الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالصبر وتواصوا بالمرحمة أولئك أصحاب الميمنة والذين كفروا بآياتنا هم أصحاب المشأمة عليهم نار مؤصدة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
All right, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the surah, he starts by swearing, and it sounds like I've always thought like Allah is saying la uqsimu, like I am not swearing. So I used to be confused as to why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying I am not swearing, but the translation says I swear, and it wasn't until I went back to the tafsir that I understood that the word la, even though it's saying no, or like saying no, it's doing nafi, but it's actually there to say no, and then period. Uqsimu bihadha albalad, I swear by this city. So the word la is an emphasis of the swear. It's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is negating something he is negating something, but he's not mentioning what it is that he's negating, and he's stating the fact. He's saying, I swear by the city. But I forgot to make dua for us. I hope may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to learn what he wants us to learn from this surah, ya Rabbal Alameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all what we need from this surah, ya Rabb. So set our intentions. Forgot to do that. So that's the first ayah. وَأَنْتَ حِلٌّ بِهَذَا الْبَلَدِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, saying to him, you are, it says, the English translation that I just copied says resident of this land, but the tafsir goes into it, like the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam having, like it's halal for him to do what he wants. So the word hil, it's being translated as resident, which could be another meaning for the word, but the tafsir emphasizes the halal aspect that we will talk about. What is halal in the city of Mecca? And by the father and what he fathered, وَوَالِدٍ وَمَا وَلَدٍ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by all of these, and then Allah makes the purpose of the oath. Why is he swearing by all these things? لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We have definitely created a human being in a state of distress, in a state of difficulty, in a state of like turmoil, struggle. Okay? أَيَحْسَبُ أَنْ لَنْ يَقْدِرَ عَلَيْهِ أَحَدٍ. Does he think that no one can ever overpower him? Does he think that no one will be capable to overpower him? And then he says, you know, to show like what he means by that, يَقُولُ أَهْلَكْتُ مَالًا لُبَدًا. He says, I have wasted so much money. I have, like, you know, used it up. It's mine, it belongs to me. أَيَحْسَبُ أَنْ لَمْ يَرَهُ أَحَدٍ. Does he think that no one can see him? أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُ عَيْنَيْنِ. Did we not make for him 2 eyes? وَلِسَانًا وَشَفَتَيْنِ, and a tongue and 2 lips so that they can express. وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ, and we showed him the 2 paths. فَلَقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةَ. So he did not brave the ascent. He did not, and we will brave the ascent. We will talk about what it means. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةُ. What makes you know about this ascent, difficult ascent? فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ, the freeing of a slave. أَوْ إِطْعَامٌ فِي يَوْمٍ ذِي مَسْغَبَةٍ, or feeding on a day of famine, of severe famine. يَتِيمًا ذَا مَقْرَبَةٍ. Who do you feed? An orphan that is related to you. أَوْ مِسْكِينًا ذَا مَتْرَبَةٍ, or someone who's so poor they don't have anything protecting them from the dust from the ground. ثُمَّ كَانَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Then he became of those who believed. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. They encouraged one another to be patient, and they وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْمَرْحَمَةِ. They encouraged one another to kindness and to compassion. أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ. Those are the dwellers of Jannah. Those are the people of Jannah. Those are the people of happiness. Maymana literally means blessings and happiness. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِنَا هُمْ أَصْحَابُ الْمَشْأَمَةِ. Those who deny and disbelieve in our signs or in our verses, they are the people of misery. They are the people of bad luck. عَلَيْهِمْ نَارٌ مُؤْصَدَةٌ. They will be in a fire that will be locked on them. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, لا أقسم بهذا البلد وأنت حل بهذا البلد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we said he's swearing, and he's swearing by this city. And when he says this city, this surah is a Makki surah. It was revealed in Mecca. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about the sanctity of Mecca. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَأَنْتَ حِلٌّ بِهَذَا الْبَلَدِ. This city, like, you live in it, you also, it is halal for you. So how is it halal for you? Now think about the time that this surah is being revealed. This is a time where Muslims are being oppressed. The Prophet ﷺ has no leadership. The Prophet ﷺ is actually fighting to be safe. You know, he's worried about his own safety and the safety of those who believe with him in Islam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling him, you will have like power at some point, that you will be the one who has the ability to make something halal and haram in the city. And what is that thing? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he calls Mecca al-Bayt al-Haram, the house that is haram. Why? Because there are things that are haram in Mecca that could be halal elsewhere, like hunting, certain actions that are completely allowed for us. We're not allowed to do them when we are in a state of doing Umrah, a state of doing Hajj, intimacy with your wife or your husband. Like cutting your hair or shortening your hair, putting perfume, doing things that are like, because you're in that state, even though it's permissible any other time, these things become like you have to know, like, when can you do it, when can you not do it, right? But then another thing is that whoever, and this was even at the time of the mushrikeen of Quraysh, is that whoever goes to the Kaaba has the protection of the Kaaba. Like, if the Kaaba has this sanctity where if somebody goes and runs to it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, like, you can't harm that person, right? But then in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, for a short period of time, you will have the ability to fight in this Kaaba. And when is that? This is when the Prophet ﷺ came from Medina as, and we had like the conquer of Mecca, Fatih Mecca, right? They were able to open it for the Muslims. They were able to remove all the idols. They were able to establish La ilaha illallah there and make it free for people to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as they wished there, right? But then when he came, there were a few individuals that the Prophet ﷺ said their blood was halal, even if they were hanging on the curtains of the Kaaba. Even though it is not okay to do that, but in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying for a short period of time, you're able to do that. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ did. And the name of the person was, let me see here. Khatal, I don't know how to say his name, but his name is Khatal. So basically, the Prophet ﷺ says, Mecca is made halal for you, O Muhammad, to fight for a short period of time. And one of the people that were ordered to be killed, even if he was hanging from, even if that person was hanging from the curtains of Kaaba, was this man by the name of Khatal, and he was actually killed in it. Hadith in Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ says, the city has been made haram on the day Allah created the heavens and the earth, and so it is haram because of this, until the day of judgment, until the day we stand in front of Allah. I'm gonna... How do you stop their video? Okay, so I hope I did that right. Okay. Until the day of judgment, its trees should not be cut or removed. It was made halal for me only for a period of time during a day, and it returned back into being haram again. Like, you're not allowed to do these things. Let those present inform those who are absent. This is really interesting because in 1980 or 1981, when the Islamic calendar turned to 1400. 1400. Now we're in 1441, right? Or 1440. When it turned to 1440, I think it was 1979. Anyhow, there was a lecture by Sheikh Yasir Qadi speaking about the Mahdi, where he talks about, is it real, is what's fiction, and what's real and what's not real. So he talks about a man, his name was Muhammad ibn Abdullah, and the leader of the group was Juhayman. They took guns, they took weapons, and they basically held the Kaaba, and the people that were there doing their Umrah, or they were doing their Umrah, they held them as captives. And this man basically said, I am the Mahdi, we're taking control over everything. And they started, I guess they brought weapons to the house of Allah, which you're not supposed to. And they it was like a mini war that happened in the Kaaba. But this is not something, and so what I wanted to emphasize is that the Sheikh, he talked about how the Saudi government, to stop this, they had to use force back. So there was like a mini war that was going back and forth. And so to protect people, for the ultimate protection of the Kaaba, it is allowed to, I guess it would become like, you would have to harm people if you want to protect them. You get it? So go back to that lecture. Sheikh Yasir Qadi does a really good job explaining what happened. And that's the part that I remember thinking like, oh, so he explained it like, if, even though we're not allowed to kill, we're not allowed to undo the sanctity of the Kaaba, just like the Prophet ﷺ is telling us here. But for the sake of protection, you have to do that. So that was interesting. وَوَالِدٍ وَمَا وَلَدٍ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is continuing to swear, continuing to take an oath on a father or a parent and the child. Who is the parent and who is the child that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about? There's difference of opinion in the tafsir. One is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about all of humankind, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about Adam alayhi salam and all of his offspring. The other opinion, I think I wrote it here wrong, please fix it, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son Ismail. Okay, how Allah when He brought him to the city and left him, and Ibrahim alayhi salam stood there and made dua for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect his children and his offspring, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect the house in where he lived, like the Kaaba, and that it wasn't built at the time, but to protect that city and to let the people there be, or his offspring, stay on La ilaha illallah, stay on the message of Tawheed, to not commit shirk, to not worship idols, right? And so, okay, Muhammad Abdul is a scholar, an Islamic scholar. He talks about how in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he's speaking in generality, what are the lessons we learned from them? And some of the things that he emphasizes are how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates, he created this humanity based on certain emotions, that through these emotions we're able to continue. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam alayhi salam, or created man and woman, to have the desire to want to be together, to have the desire to want to have an intimate relationship. Like that's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created that emotions in them. So people seek it out, people look for it, and they enjoy it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the desire in human beings to want to have children, to want to, and then once they have children, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the love in them to want to take care of those children properly and give them what they need, of love, of support, of guidance, of feeding, of you name it, right? So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected this, what do you call it? Like this ayah, this creation, of human beings through these emotions, right? Let me see here. Selfless love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surat Shura, He talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يجعل من يشاء يهب لمن يشاء لله ملك السماوات والأرض لله ملك السماوات والأرض يرزق من يشاء يخلق ما يشاء. To Allah belongs the heavens and the earth. He creates what He wishes. He gives whomever He wants female, and whoever He wants He gives them male, or He gives them both male and female, and He makes whomever He wants aqim. Aqim meaning like barren, somebody who's not able to have a child. Innahu alimun qadir. He is the most knowing and the most able, right? So I remember reflecting on this ayah. There was like a time, about a year or two, that I was trying to get pregnant after, I guess a while after Imran was born. And I would every time I thought okay, I'm not going to get my period this time, I would end up getting it, And I remember these verses because they were part of my memorization and my review. I would be, wallahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's the one who has the knowledge, and He's the one who has the ability, right? And in the Quran, He talks about how Zakaria alayhi salam, constantly was making dua that Allah give him a child, to not leave him without a child. And Allah eventually answered the dua. How He talks about how Ibrahim alayhi salam, same thing, he was always making dua for a child, and eventually Allah gave him a child. How the mother of Maryam alayhi salam was always asking for a child, and Allah eventually blessed them with a child. And so there is this thing, we believe in the power of dua. We believe in the power of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but then if somebody is at a point where they might not have a child, or they may never have a child, to never give up on dua, because you don't know what's going to come your way. But if it ends up being that Allah determined you don't have a child, then this is because Allah has the knowledge and Allah has the power. And He decided based on His knowledge that it wasn't best. And so I remember thinking, whenever I would read those verses, I would say, I would feel sad, but then it would be Ya Allah, you know what is best. You know what is best, So and those emotions, they're very intense, and I wasn't tested with them into that level, but I know friends who have been, and subhanAllah, it's very agonizing. It's very agonizing to want to have a child and not be able to, And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for anyone who's experiencing that, but to reflect on those verses and to reflect also on the verses in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers the dua of these righteous people in the Quran, like the prophets and the mother of Maryam alayhi salam, and the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the wife of Zakaria alayhi salam, because it's a human nature to want it, to feel it. It's not, sometimes we feel like, I shouldn't feel this, I shouldn't want it. And that's how people speak to others, like when they express the pain that they're enduring because of not being able to have a child. You hear like, be patient, are you going to go against what Allah wants? But then this is how Allah created us, to want it, to desire it. And something Sheikh Muhammad Sharif always says, when should you stop making dua for something? When the desire no longer exists. When the desire is no longer there, that's the only time you should give up on making dua to Allah for anything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for anything that you want from Allah, And so it's interesting how the Quran puts it. Now, the other thing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected humanity through the love He put in the hearts of parents for their children once they have them. And so in the Quran, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the guidance that parents give children, but he when He's speaking to children, He always emphasizes the kindness and the care that they should give and the respect that they should give their parents, right? How come Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't tell a parent to love the child? Because that's already there. The kindness and the care, it's already there, it's instilled in them. But then once the parents become of old age, they are now dependent on the child, right? And the child does not have the selfless love that the parent had for them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes in the Quran, وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after saying وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ, don't commit shirk. I can't think of the ayahs, but don't commit shirk. And be obedient, be respectful, be loving towards your parents. And the only time you shouldn't be respectful and obedient, I don't want to say even obedience has restrictions, but the only time you don't give them that unconditional obedience is if they ask you to worship other than Allah, if they call you to sin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes why, they have taken care of you. I think my favorite one is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that we make dua for our parents and ask Allah, Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. Oh Allah, take care of them just like they have taken care of me when I was little. How did they do it? They did it with utmost love and care, right? I remember something else. Now I know there are incidents, and there's many of them, of parents who don't do their children right, who don't give them the right upbringing, who abuse them, who take away their rights, who mistreat them. Like a man came to Umar radiallahu anhu, and he said to him, my son is being bad to me, or he's doing uquq al-walid, he's basically cutting me off, and so that when he called the the son said, my father did this to me before I even did it for him. He never, he didn't, he didn't educate me. He didn't choose a good mother for me. He gave me a bad name. He did all these things to me. So Umar says to the man, you had done him wrong before he could even do you wrong, right? So there is obviously kama tudinu tudan, just like you treat your child, they will end up treating you like that someday. Right? But then there's also parents who fulfilled their responsibility and children who did not protect it. Anyways, what was my point? My point was, I forgot the point I was going to make. SubhanAllah. Let me come back here. There's why isn't it natural for children to love their parents like how parents love their kids? Why are children asked to do that specifically? Because that selfless love, so there's a Somali saying, the one you gave birth to did not give birth to you, right? So because of the experience of being a parent, you went through the difficulty of carrying, of raising, of upbringing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put that extra love in the hearts of fathers and mothers towards their children, than he did in the heart of a child towards their parent. I love my mother, right? I'm sure, Rabia, you love your mother, you love your father, but they love you 10 times more. And there is no way we can ever, like, it's just the way Allah created us, you know? So this is what I wanted to say. Yes, I remember in the class I took with Sheikh Muhammad Sharif, he talked about in Islamic law, if a father kills the child, they don't get the death penalty, you know? And it's not because, I remember him saying, it's not because, you know, like in Islam, if you kill somebody, you get killed, right? But if a father killed their child, they don't get the death penalty because the Sharia takes into consideration the mental state of that parent. Because the assumption is there's no way a parent will harm the child unless there was something that was impairing their judgment, you know, whether it was mental illness or whatever it was, right? And that's interesting. Allah Ta'ala alam, obviously, like that was just one thing that he said in the context of something that could be even bigger, but reflecting on that, like, you know, a parent does not harm the child always. But we obviously know that there are cases where that does happen, but then I'm sure that the numbers of children who, when their parents get in an old age, don't respect, don't honor, you know, mistreat. Like, you know, think about, subhanallah, when we become teenagers, like teenagers, how do they react? How do they interact with their parents? It's like, I know better. I'm not going to be as loving and kind to you. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even says in the Quran, like, don't say uff to them. Like, don't even use a word like that, you know? Or, you know, in our culture, it would be like, you know, don't even roll your eyes at them, you know? And those are things that are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't tell the parents in the Quran. Yes, you guide. And Allah shows us examples of how you guide, teaching them the deen, teaching them about Allah, teaching them good manners, you know, like teaching them how to be in the world. And that's something that is so dear to me because I'm so like passionate about parenting and what children need, that sometimes you do see parents who are not giving the children they're not fulfilling the amana to the highest potential, right? But do they, what makes them do that? That's something that amazes me, because I'm always like, you know what? A parent loves their child, but what stands in the way? You know, what stands in the way? So I hope that answers your thoughts. Watch that video. It's basically of a man. Like, why don't we watch it together? Actually, it's quite interesting and beautiful. Subhanallah.
عند ذهابنا إلى تلك البلدان النائية أن نرى آلاما وفقرا، لكن سبحان الله يظهر الله لك من وسط هذا الألم لوحة من عجائب الأخلاق. عندما زرنا الصومال أخذنا ننتقل كثيرا بين القرى، وسمعنا من إحدى الأخوات عن وجود بيت فيه قصة عجيبة. رجل مع زوجته، هم كبار في السن، الأم شبه مقعدة وعمياء لا ترى، والعجيب أنه قد مات لها 11 ابنا بسبب الأمراض وسوء التغذية هناك. لا إله إلا الله، ما بقي لها إلا ابن واحد. البيت الذي يسكنون فيه لا يوجد فيه سور حتى، فهم يجعلون مكان السور أغصان شجر ميت لتمنع الحيوانات من الدخول إلى داخل البيت. هذه عائلة مكونة من 3 أفراد، وكان في السابق لديهم 12 ابنا وابنة، مات 11 منهم وما بقي إلا واحد، وهو ليس موجود الآن. ذهب إلى الخارج يبحث لهم عن طعام، لأنه في الصباح حضر لهم طعام وانتهى وما بقي طعام آخر. تخيل أن تجرح هذه الأم الضعيفة 11 مرة. الأم كبيرة بالسن، عمياء لا ترى، والأب كبير بالسن أيضا نظره بسيط، وأبنائهم 11 ابن مات، الواحد والآخر من سنة 84 إلى سنة 92 وهم يموتون، ابن وابنة. كيف لقلبها أن يستحمل كل هذه الآلام طوال هذه الأعوام؟ والوضع مزري حقيقة، ويعني الحال يرثى لها، وهم في الحقيقة صابرون محتسبون. اللي يخفف عنهم يقولون على كلامهم هي العبادة، ليخفف عنهم قيام الليل، الصلاة وعبادتهم وذكرهم لله عز وجل. لكن أتدري كيف عوضها الله تعالى؟ لقد رزقها ربنا سبحانه بابن قد عوضها عن الأبناء السابقين جميعا. من أجمل المناظر التي أحب رؤيتها في حياتي منظر ابن يبر والديه. هذا المنظر. الابن يتفرغ لطبخ الطعام لوالديه، لم يخرج لنزهة مع أصحابه، لم يتزوج وينشغل بزوجته عنهم، بل قد وهب وقته لهم وهو فرح بذلك، وهو يصنع طعاما خاصا لهما يكون لينا جدا ومذابا، لأن والديه لا يستطيعون مضغ الطعام. فقلت له: وكيف تأكله أنت وهو كذلك؟ فقال: هو يقول بس يعني إذا هي تحب تأكل أنا أكل معها. نعم، إنه أحيانا يطبخ طعاما لا يشتهيه، ولكن إذا أحب الطعام والداه أحبه هو أيضا، لأن طعم البر أعذب من الطعام، بل إنه يطعم أمه بيده ويغسل يديها بيده ويحملها بيده، يغطيها، يهمز رجلها، وكأنه مجموعة من الأبناء يهتمون بأمهم وليس ابنا واحدا فقط. إنه يتفنن في بر أمه لدرجة أنه لا يعمل في كل يوم، بل يعمل يوما ويترك العمل يوما لكي يعتني بأمه وأبيه. لدي أصحاب، لدي أصدقاء. ليس لي صاحب غير والدي، وأنا ليس لي وقت لغيري، كل وقتي له. ترك أصحابه لأجل صاحب والده، نعم الصحبة. هل هو عندما يتعب كسب السعادة؟ وكان يعني والدتي هذا نعم فرحت مدرسة صحيح. يقول أنا أفرح كثيرا وأنا منبسط كثيرا، مبسوط 100 يعني. وهي أيضا تحب أن تسمع القرآن منها.
ثم يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون والله سيعلمون.
أخونا شريف أحد أعضاء فريق العمل كان قد ترك والدته مريضة في بلدها، فلم يستحمل ذلك الموقف. عموما أخواني أخواتي، أخونا شريف الآن قد توفيت والدته، ونطلب منكم من فضلكم الدعاء لها. أما هذا الشاب من الصومال فإنه لا يزال يظهر أجمل معاني البر في تلك الأم التي يعتني بها. أخي الكريم، أختي الكريمة، لن يبقى إنسان مع والدته طوال حياته، إما أن تفارقه وإما أن يفارقها، ولكن ألا تظن أنه كنز يذوب يوما فيوم حتى تستيقظ فلا تجده؟ بكى أحد الصالحين في جنازة أمه فقيل له في ذلك: لماذا تبكي؟ فقال: والله ما أبكي أن أمي قد ماتت، ولكني أبكي أن بابا من أبواب الجنة أغلق علي اليوم. هيا يا أخوتي والأخوات، نذهب الآن ونظهر أفضل ما عندنا لآبائنا وأمهاتنا، فليجعل الإنسان في قلبه أن لا يخرج من باب أمه وأبيه إلا وقد رسم عليهما أجمل ابتسامة وقد أدخل عليهما أحلى سرور.
You know, come back here. Okay. So, you know, the word in Arabic that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses in the Quran, it's not obedience, it's actually bir. And bir literally means like love, like so much love, so much kindness, so much unconditional love, you know. And it's interesting because Allah does not tell the parent to give the children unconditional love because they already have it. Allah doesn't say that to parents because they already have it. Another thing is because when we say obedience, like, you know, there is that thing like where we have to obey what our parents tell us regardless. Well, there was a story that Sheikh Yasir Burjas told us. I actually would love to find this hadith. A woman came to the Prophet ﷺ and she said, my father is making me marry this man and I don't want to. And so the Prophet ﷺ said to the man, like, don't marry her to this man if she does not want him. So once, like, the Prophet ﷺ said she has the choice, she said, okay, now I will marry him. And then the Prophet ﷺ asked her, like, why did you do that? What was the point? Like, why did you have to say no if you were going to agree? She said, I wanted women to know that they have a choice, that they don't have to listen, right? And so sometimes, like, what is done in our cultures is say you have to obey everything your parent tells you to do. And the reality is, no, I can love you and not take and not take your advice or your opinion on something. I have that ability to do that, Another thing is, thinking about this time, like what happens is that when we are older, hang on. Yes, he's going to give you a talk. Before unta? When what happens is that, like, when our parents are older, usually, like, we are also in a state where we are older and we maybe have like work and we have careers and spouses and children and things that we're trying to balance. So what they call that generation now that is basically taking care of their young children and also caring for their older parents is the sandwich generation, where you have to learn how to keep two things together. And it's so difficult to say, to meet the needs of children and older. Like, I remember when Imran was little, there would be like 2-3 days of the week that I would go to my mom, and we would spend sometimes like 3-4 hours in the car just running errands. And wallahi, like, there was nothing more difficult on my heart that this little kid is stuck in the car seat for that many hours, and he'd scream and he'd cry, and it's like, I don't want to, like, what is he doing? Like, how is his time being used properly? I can't do activities with him. I can't take him to places. I can't do that with him. But then it was like, your mom has needs, and my heart wanted to fulfill that. And so there was this, like, if it's heavy on the heart. That's the only thing that I can say. So, we can appreciate that hadith where the man, the 3 men who were blocked by a rock, and one of them said that he preferred his parents to get the milk before his own children. That's like a big sacrifice, because like, you know how serious it is. Like, here are my children who are hungry, but I'm not even going to feed them. I'm going to wait until my parents get the best of the meal, So it's not easy. There's a book called Being Mortal that I read a while back, and I remember, like, when our parents get older, they sort of become irrational, they're sort of losing their independence, and they're not used to that, and they're losing their independence, but they're part of their humanness is that they want to keep hanging on to it. They've been independent their whole life, and all of a sudden they may not be able to live on their own or walk on their own, or they may not be able to cook for themselves, and they're completely dependent on someone else. And this is where, like, we really, like, if kindness is not there, subhanallah, may Allah help us. If kindness is not there, imagine the pain that person is in, that I am now in need of this person that I have loved my whole life, and they might not be able to see, sense my needs. So my mom said something to me the other day. She said, I took Maryam, the baby, and I was washing her. I was giving her a shower, and she helps me a lot with caring for her. My husband helps a lot with caring for her. And she said, you're a mother, you understand what she needs. Like, I can help you. Her husband, your husband can help, but you understand things that she needs even better than anybody else, So how do we as children now, as when our parents reach that age, how do we become like aware of their needs when they can no longer express it. When they can no longer express it, when they may not even express it because they are careful to not burden you, because they understand what you're going through, you know? So no, we don't love our parents as selflessly as they loved us, but can we bring that, can we grow in that aspect? Can we grow in that aspect? That's like, I guess that's something that is worthy of us to reflect on. So what I was going to say, that book talks about how when they lose, they become irrational, and it's almost like you're caring for a toddler again, you know? And so when our parents are raising us and we're toddlers, you know, the inshallah, like, you know, the kind parent realizes you're a toddler. I don't understand, like, I know you're acting this way, but I'm still gonna love you. You know, you're annoying me, you're giving me hell, but I'm still gonna love you. I'm still gonna guide you. I'm still gonna come and hug you. But we don't tell our toddlers, like, go away. You know, I don't wanna see you. I hate you, you know? But then, like, how do we talk to our parents when if they reach that age? How do we interact with them to not show them that they're a burden, to not show them that, we love them and care for them, you know? May Allah guide us in that, Ya Rab. May Allah guide us in that, Ya Rab. I remember when I told you guys right now about, like, Imran spending hours in the car. I went to Texas, and I remember, like, I listened to the sister talk about her story about a time where she had 3 little children, you know, and I think they were like 4-year-olds and younger. Her name is Tayyiba Sayyid. She's like a writer and writing coach and has books, and mashallah. She was talking about how when her father was sick, she would be in the car for about 4 hours every day. And I was like, what you're doing is nothing, Khartoum. What you're doing for your mom, like 2-3 days a week that you go grocery shopping with a little kid and blah, it's nothing. Only one, it's nothing, you know? So always realizing that there's somebody who's outdoing us in kindness and in love, you know, and that whatever we do, there's somebody who's done it better, you know. I found that, like, I was, subhanAllah, I really enjoyed, like, I had to go to her. She was talking about writing, but all I could think about was how she was to her father when before he passed away. May Allah have mercy on him. Anyhow, this is the ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is Jawab al-Qasam, this is the purpose of the oath, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing. And in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ, for sure, we have definitely created human beings in a state of kabad. Kabad means, like, your liver means kabad, but also, like, your kabad literally means difficulty, hardship, turmoil. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, suffering, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, this is the nature that human beings have been created in. What kind of kabad? What does that look like? Ibn Abbas, he says, this is the difficulty of carrying the child. And, like, you know, when they are in the womb and they're struggling to survive in the womb, they're growing. And then the struggle of being born, the struggle of, like, laboring, like, as you're coming out, it's not easy for the mom, but it's also not easy for the child. When they're feeding, it's not easy. When they are birthing, it's not easy. When we are doing that, it's not easy. When we there's, like, another, when the teeth are coming out, it's not easy. There's hardships that a human being endures from the day they're born until they die, to the point where, you know, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that when a person dies, the grave becomes tight on them, that nobody would escape that, and it's painful. And this is the type of pain and struggle that all of humanity goes through, regardless of their faith. This is just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking about insan in general, right? Now, there was when one of the tafsirs, it was one scholar was mentioning how the struggles include all that I have mentioned, but then learning, going to school, having to deal with the teacher, having to learn to socialize, having to learn to go through pain in life, to go experience, like, heartbreaks, to get married, to have a job, to look for a job, to want to have income, to want to take care of, you know, like, to want to take care of yourself. All of these things that when we look at one another, we're all struggling with one thing or the other. Ibn al-Qayyim talks about how human beings are always in a state of struggle between patience and gratitude. So you either have no pressing difficulties that you're thinking about, so you have to be grateful. Or you are experiencing some sort of a struggle and you have to be patient. So there's always those two states that you are in. Both are calling you to struggle with something. Like, do you struggle to be grateful? Where is that struggle for you? And if you're going through a difficulty, that asking yourself, like, saying to yourself, like, hey, I'm not the only one, because what happens is that there's this modern day, what do you call, the grass is greener on the other end, that person is not going through it. Why am I the only one like they have it better? And this is, subhanAllah, a disease and an illness, and it's not reality. It is a disease, it's an illness of the heart, and it's not reality. It's so far away from reality because everybody is in a state of struggle. We just don't see them. We just don't see it. We're not there with them to see what it is that they're struggling with. So we look at the external world of somebody, but if we hear what it is that they're struggling with, we're always going to want to keep our own struggle, and we're going to say, I can't handle that. I don't want your struggle, I want my own, right? And so realizing that your difficulties are to shape you and who you are, and that they are part of the process. How can this perception help you in your own struggle and frustrations? Fitna, the word fitna, when we say we're going through a fitna, it basically means that we're going through an ordeal that when we come out of it, we're going to have a new shape, right? Because the word fitna comes from the root word fatana. And who does fatana? Like, who does that? The goldsmith. When he applies heat to gold to give it a shape, or to decipher, I don't know how he does it. They apply heat to gold to take it out of something, or to give it a shape, right? So when he does that process, it comes out differently. So when we're going through a struggle, when we are going through a fitna, whatever it may be, it could be big, it could be societal, it could be personal, we're going to go through it either way, and we're going to come out a certain way anyway, right? Can we be intentional in how we want to come out of it? I'm being tested with this. How do I want to come out? So let's say a person is going for Hajj, right? And they know it's going to be difficult. So they ask themselves before they even go, how do I want to come out of it? I want to come out of it as someone who has experienced it, but I was not impacted. Like, I didn't let it get to my heart, So having that mindset before you even go makes the process easier, right? I hope that makes sense, inshallah. We're all struggling and we're all in it. How are we going to come out of it? And how are we going to give ourselves the talk we need to get through it? So I asked my mom one time, like, what was the most difficult day of your life? And believe it or not, my mom said the most difficult day of her life. Now, I was thinking, like, my mom's had really an eventful life, and I thought she would tell me about, like struggling to raise children, marriage, family, death, something, other things, like living in a foreign country, coming to a foreign country. I thought, like, she would have something big. And she said the most difficult day of her life was a day where it was extremely cold, and she had to take the city bus, and she was new to North America. And she said her hands froze, and she started crying. She started crying from the cold. And she said she thought to herself, what country did I come to? Am I going to be able to survive and raise my children here? And she thought, like, I'm going to die. Like, I'm not going to be able to handle this. And so she thought, like, when she calmed down a little bit and, she kind of warmed up, she looked around and she saw people walking, like just people walking in the streets. And she said to herself, if they can do it, I can do it too. And I was like, whoa, I wish I had that attitude. you know, if they can do it, I can do it too. Like, we're all, I mean, they were able to endure that difficulty. I'm not any less. Allah did not create me less. So I got in me whatever it takes to get me through whatever it is that I'm challenged with. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the next ayah, he says, some of the tafsir was basically connecting this ayah, أَيَحْسَبُ أَنْ لَا يَقْدِرَ عَلَيْهِ أَحَدٌ, to the oath, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually just explaining. Allah says human beings have been created in a state of struggle, and this is the state of some of them, okay? Human beings have been created in a struggle, and this is the state, the general state of some of them. أَيَحْسَبُ أَنْ لَنْ يَقْدِرَ عَلَيْهِ أَحَدٌ, does he think that no one will overpower them, that no one will be able to overpower them, or يَقْدِرَ عَلَيْهِ, I am able, I have ability over you, power over you. And then how does he see that power? How does he see his own power? يَقُولُ أَهْلَكْتُ مَالًا لُبَدًا. He sees his power to be the amount of money he was able to destroy and use up. And so أَيَحْسَبُ أَنْ لَمْ يَرَهُ أَحَدٌ, does he think that no one sees him? Because he has money that he spends in the way however he wishes, and because he doesn't see anybody looking at him and holding him account, he thinks that nobody sees me, nobody is watching over me, and I have all this money and I spend it the way I want. Ain't nobody could do anything to me, right? Ain't nobody more powerful than me, right? So this in the tafsir, it mentioned how some of the kuffar of Quraysh, they would have parties where they would drink, and they would say, I drink and I spend all, they would get intoxicated, and they would say, this is my money and I spend it the way I want, right? This is my life and I live it the way I want, and I'm going to basically enjoy it to the fullest, right? And I don't think and this is obviously in them denying the akhirah, in them denying accountability from a God. And that's why Allah says, do they think that nobody is watching them? What breaks my heart about the topic of alcohol or being able to just spend and do whatever. I remember a while back there was a video made by a young Muslim girl. She was a Somali girl. She was very young. I don't want to say very young. She was a teen, and she made this video, and it went viral. And it was basically her saying the Quran is basically saying you're gonna drink alcohol in Jannah, and it's not going to intoxicate you. Oh no, I want to drink it here. I don't want that. Kind of dismissing the akhirah. And Allah knows what was in their heart. May Allah. I hope, inshallah, that's not what she meant, but it came across like that. And that's how people actually speak about certain things nowadays, is that Allah is promising us this, but hey, you know what? I can do it now. Why do I care about that when I can do it now? Live, you only live once type of a mentality. And I remember some of my students, they showed me the video and they were but Sister Kaltoon, what fun is it if I can't drink here? And when I get to the akhirah, I'm not even going to be intoxicated. How fun is it going to be to drink alcohol when it won't even have that effect? And so there is this element of whatever Allah is talking about it's not interesting. It's not good for me. It's not interesting. I don't want it. Do you understand what I mean? It was interesting because the hadith was the tafsir was elaborating with the story of the kuffar of Quraysh, and how when they would drink alcohol, is they would say, "Ahlaktu malan lubada," I've wasted so much money. I am living life like that. I'm wasting it and I don't care, and nobody cares, and nobody's gonna hold me accountable. And then the reality is how mindful are you that somebody is watching you, that you're being Allah is aware of what you're doing. Not only that Allah will ask you about it. So in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, the slave of Allah will be put to stand, and it will be said to him or her, what did you do with your wealth that you were blessed with? So he says, I spent it and I paid zakah from it. And then it will be said to him, no, you had only done that so that people will say you were generous, and it was set. Khalas, it was done. People said it. Now this person will go to the hellfire. One of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لا تزول قدم عبد, the Prophet ﷺ tells us the hadith where, you know, the son of the slave of Allah will not leave their place until they're asked about a number of things. One of them, how did you earn your money? What did you do to it? And how did you spend it? You know, how did you earn your money and how did you spend it? Right? So it's those two questions. So one day I remember I returned something to Dollar Tree, right? I had a friend of mine, she was a coworker of mine that was with me, and I was trying to rush and have a conversation with her. So the lady, the register lady, when I returned this thing, she was supposed to give me money back, but she kept on taking her time, like something wasn't working, and it was taking too long. And I think she owed me like about $1, right? $1.06. And I'm waiting there, and then I just became impatient, and I said, let's just go. It doesn't matter, it's just $1. So my friend looked at me and she said, Kaltoon, even that $1, Allah will ask you about it. This is a blessing Allah gave you, so don't let it just go to waste, right? So if Allah, when in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't be of al-mubaddireen, don't be of those who are wasteful when it comes to their money and their food, but when it comes to money, Allah basically is saying not even one penny that is spent improperly, even though it's just $1, right? Even that $1 is if you spend it improperly, you will be asked about it and you are considered of the mubaddireen. But if you spent $1 million in a place that is worthy, then you are not mubaddir. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality of how did you spend it. What was the cause, and was it a reasonable cause? So because this is something I personally like really struggle with, like it blows my mind that if I'm going to stop and buy a cup of coffee, you know, what Allah asked me, like, Kaltoon, you could have made it at home. Why did you choose to spend $4 for it? You know, and will that answer be one that I'm comfortable presenting to Allah on the Day of Judgment? You know, when I'm standing in front of Him, will I be comfortable to tell Allah, why did I spend $4 on coffee when I could have made it at home for like less the amount? I'm not saying it is not okay. You know, I do spend, you know, money on coffee outside, but knowing the reason why we did it, right? If the reason is good, it's acceptable. It's not how much you spent, it's why did you spend it, right? And another thing is, like, you know, often people talk about, you know, like, oh, why do you have to pay so much money for this item? So thinking about how if Allah gave you wealth and He gave you income and He gave you money, like, and you live a good life and you have good quality things, even if they're expensive, and it makes you grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then alhamdulillah, you have there's no blame for that extravagance if it brings you gratitude of Allah. But if it brings you this attitude of, I destroyed all this money, I got it, you know, nobody's going to hold me accountable, that's the blame-worthy type of, that's what we need to be careful with, okay? And so, let me see if I think I've explained all of this. Actually, this is a hadith, maybe I should read it. In this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, this is a hadith of a man who was a hypocrite. He basically did something, and so the Prophet ﷺ told him that he has to pay kafara. He has to pay a certain amount to expiate his sin. And so this man, he said, all my money has gone, has been wasted in the expiation and in the sadaqah that Muhammad is asking me since I have entered into the religion of Muhammad. And so this type of speaking about how you spent your money and attributing, it's like my sadaqah is worthless, like I'm losing my money on charity. When you speak like that, then you're not getting the reward of that sadaqah. You know, you're not getting the ajr of it. You know, say you you and I think we've talked about this, when you give somebody charity and you do men, you tell them like, didn't I do this for you? Didn't I give that to you? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surat AlBalad, He says, لا تذهبوا صدقاتكم, like don't let the reward of your sadaqah go, because of the way you spoke about it. And so this was a man who was doing that at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So you will be asked about it. I think I did cover everything here. Okay. So in the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُ عَيْنَيْنِ وَلِسَانًا وَشَفَتَيْنِ وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. Did we not make for him 2 eyes? Did we not make for him a tongue and lips? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking us back to the most basic of the blessings. Here in this ayah, this person is being arrogant and denying Allah and the favors of Allah. So Allah, and this is like what you have worked up, right? Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking us back to the most basic blessings He has given us since we were children, and we cannot go without it. And it's like, this is how you are able to get whatever it is that you have. Because your ability to see, your ability to hear, and your ability to express, that's like basically the sources of your knowledge and information that brought you the money that you're being proud of, right? And so you're denying it, and Allah is saying, didn't Allah give you that? How ungrateful can you be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when the gifts you are using are from Him? Something else that, subhanAllah, this brings to my mind. I was thinking the other day how in this secular system, we are basically that the goal is to separate religion from everything, separate God and religion from everything. And so what happened is that we separated religion from, let's say, the education system specifically. That's what I was thinking about. In the school system, we said, you know what, we have to separate God and state. So in the schools, we don't teach about God, we don't teach about prayer, we don't teach about all these things. We secularized everything, right? And then nowadays, every school is trying to implement mindfulness and meditation practices that really do come from religion, right? In the schools, to manage the children, to manage themselves, to manage the teachers. Why? How did we remove God from it? And then now we're trying to bring it back and say, let's have prayer, let's have mindfulness, but this is not really attributed to religion. It's just something that you have to do. But we cannot deny the fact that humanity has known prayer and meditation through religiosity, through a religion. Whether it was Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, those are essentially religions, right? And we know like religions are attributed to, like, it's against secularism, right? It's like, I believe in science, right? And science never said, come and pray. But nowadays science is saying that. So subhanAllah, like, I hope you guys get my drift, but it's so interesting. Like you said, we don't need this, but then here you are, you brought it back. This is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ tells us about, it was mentioned in Tafseer Ibn Kathir, so I don't know the authenticity of it, like, because, it's mentioned in Ibn Kathir, but it's not a hadith that I have a grading for. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this hadith Qudsi, O son of Adam, I blessed you with great blessings. They cannot be counted, and you will not be able to ever be thankful enough for them. And from what I had blessed you with are your 2 eyes that you see with, and I made them for them a cover. So look with your eyes what I made allowed for you, and if you see what I've made haram, then look away from it. And I made for you a tongue and made it covered. So only speak with it with what is allowed, and do not speak of what I have made haram for you. Lock your tongue, basically. And I made for you private parts, and I made for them a covering. So seek with your private parts what is made halal, and stay away from what has been made haram for you. O son of Adam, you cannot carry my anger, nor can you bear my revenge. Okay? So this is basically, if we go around with this attitude, right, at some point the punishment will come. At some point, the anger of Allah is with us, and at some point, whether it is in this dunya or in the akhirah, the punishment will come, right? And so being mindful in how we use our blessings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the next, let me go back and just make sure I don't have anything in there. Well, this is basically the dua, the hadith in English. وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ, and we have guided him the two paths, right? The two paths, the path of guidance and the path of misguidance. Literally the word najd is like an elevated, it's like, it's not a mountain, but it's an elevated part of the earth. Like it's a steep place, like a place that you actually could go up, you know. It's not a mountain, but it's a little bit less than a mountain. We indeed guided him the two paths. So he's either, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surat Al-Insan, he says, Inna hadaynahu sabila imma shakiran wa imma kafura. That Allah showed us the two paths. We're either grateful or we are like of those who deny. So the path, hadith, this is hadith mursal, O people, it is only the two paths, the path of goodness and the path of evil. So what will make you love the path of evil over the path of goodness? So this is a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now guidance, when it comes to us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it comes in these forms. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us the revelation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us the intuition, the ilham, like the ilham, like فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, the verses that we covered last week. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is inspiring us, like we have that intuition, the fitrah that is there. And then our experiences, whether they were good or bad, like they show us the way as well. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us opportunities. So there was a joke I heard, Sheikh Muhammad Sharif shared it the other day, so I remember it. There was a man who, like, there was a flood, and the people came to evacuate the people from the city, right? The police and the rescue teams, and they came to rescue people. So this man said, no, I made dua, I asked God to save me, and so I'm gonna wait for God to come and save me. And so this man, like, you know, the police would come, he would say, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. He goes above the roof of his house, and he waits, the rescue team come, they leave, and he's telling everybody, no, I'm not going to go with you, I'm waiting for God to come and save me. And then he dies. So then God meets with him, and he tells them, like, why did you die? And he says, how come you didn't rescue me? And he says, well, I sent you the police, I sent you the rescue people, I sent you, you know, all these signs and the airplanes and the helicopter, all these things were coming to you, and you were kept on saying no, you know. So realizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way he gives this guidance is through opportunities. Whether it is I spoke to somebody and they said something that I needed to hear, or I came across, you know, like a certain job that taught me skills, and those skills is the knowledge Allah wanted from me. Or I read a book, and in that book was a message for me. So Allah gives us guidance through all these different ways, right? The question is, are we paying attention? Are we aware? Are we hearing? Are we listening? Or are we putting our blinds up, and even though we're getting all this stuff, we're just not being attentive to them. We're not paying attention. This really scares me, because we live in a time of, like, we love information. We know so much, right? Everything is at our tips, like our fingertips. Like, we can get whatever we want. But what does that look like in terms of what's deep in like what has settled in our minds and in our hearts that we actually do it? What has settled and what's standing in the way? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the next ayah, he says, فَلَقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةِ. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, he says, this person who is ungrateful, what did they not do? They did not cross the path of difficulty. That's basically, iqtahama literally means to break into something, to throw yourself into something without even thinking, to attack something. Like, I'm going to go and attack it. It's like, I'm going to handle it, you know, I'm going to handle it. If there's a police raid, the police iqtahama al-house, you know, like they raided in this house. They just boom, barged in, if that's a word. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this person did not do that, with al-aqaba. What is al-aqaba? Al-aqaba is when you're climbing up a mountain, the most difficult part of climbing up that mountain is called al-aqaba, right? Then Allah says, what is al-aqaba? وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةُ? Allah is now speaking about mountain climbing, right? Allah is speaking about the behaviors or the actions that seem like that for a human being, right? Especially one who wants to be completely grateful to Allah, not be a denier, right? What are these actions? فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ, to free a slave, to feed people on a day of famine, like there's mazghaba is like severe hunger. Yatiman da maqraba, when this, like you feed an orphan who's actually related to you. Aw miskinan da matraba, somebody who's so poor they don't even have like a shelter. You know, they're sleeping on the dust. They're sleeping outdoors, like homeless people. So repetition means emphasis. Let me make sure I don't have any. Okay. I'm just making sure I follow everything today because I keep forgetting stuff. So why these specific actions? Why these specific actions? I included a video, how there's about slavery of back in the days and slavery today, you know, because whenever, and I thought this was important because whenever we speak about slavery, we think about the modern day, because this is where we're living, right? We're thinking about the modern day historical abuse of human beings, you know, and dehumanizing them. But then slavery has been part of human societies forever, you know, even before Islam. But then what's important for us to know as Muslims is, how did Islam protect slaves? How did it protect their humanity, their rights? How did it treat them as, how did it not take away their humanity? How did it make sure that they were not abused and misused and you know, like demoralized and their spirit being killed, or that they're even being killed? So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ, that you see a slave and you free them for the sake of Allah. And so there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, let me see here, من أعتق رقبة مؤمنة أعتق الله بكل إرب, like, so whoever frees one slave that is a believing slave, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will free every part of their body from the fire, right? To the point where if you free somebody, like the hand with the hand, like every single part of your body is being freed from the fire for that slave as well. And then where is the other hadith? Wow. So somebody, فقال سعيد نعم. Okay, hold on. أني سمعت هذا من. So a man said, Ali ibn al-Hussein. Okay, let me go back to this, right? This is a hadith that is basically Sa'id, somebody by the name of Sa'id ibn Murjana. He says that I heard from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu that he shared this hadith, right? That the Prophet ﷺ said, if you free a believing slave, then every part of your body will be freed from the slave. So then Ali ibn al-Hussein said to him, did you hear this hadith, Ya Sa'id, from Abu Hurairah? And he said, yes. So Ali ibn al-Hussein called a young boy, and his name was Mutarrif. He said, call Mutarrif. They called Mutarrif, and he said to him, go, you are a free man. Okay? You're free. You're not my slave anymore. So basically, like, he hears the hadith from his friend, and you know, the hadith basically says what we just talked about. Like, if you free a slave, then Allah will free you from the fire. And then he says, you heard this from Abu Hurairah? And he said to him, yes, I heard it from Abu Hurairah. He calls his slave and he tells him, you are a free man. Like, you know, the concept of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they were the kind of people who heard and obeyed right away. They heard, they obeyed right away. That's the difference between them and us. And the difference between the good people and the people who are delayed. May Allah not make them amongst them, right? What is the hadith? And this is another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, whoever frees a husband and a wife that are both slaves, if you free them, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will let you enter into Jannah from any of the 8 gates. Okay, my question, which I actually don't have an answer for, which I would love to know, nowadays, if we don't have access to this worship, we can't, I don't know where to go and free a slave. What is an equivalent to that? What is something that is equivalent to it? And there is an equivalent, which I will be sharing with us in the dua class, in the dhikr class, right? I don't have it memorized, but there is an equivalence. Anyways, oh my God, where'd I go? Where'd I go? Okay, and then why is there a specific emphasis for a relative who is an orphan? Because in taking care of an orphan that is your own family member, then you're getting double the reward. You're getting the reward for the sadaqah, and you're getting the reward for taking care of the family member, like taking care of keeping up the ties of kinship. I watched a video the other day. So remember when we did I think it was رأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم. We said that the reason why that surah was revealed was Abu Sufyan used to slaughter 2 camels every week or every week or every month, I don't remember. He used to slaughter 2 camels, and then an orphan would come and he would want to eat. He would invite all his friends to come and eat. Abu Sufyan would invite people, like the elites of the community, to come and eat with him. And then when this orphan would come, he would yadu' al-yatim. He would like kick him away. He would like kick him away harshly, right? Push the orphan away harshly. And so there was a video made. It was basically a study how people are more inclined to help a child if the child looks good, beautiful, and neat, versus if the child looks like they are poor, they are not dressed nice, they look dirty. They're not going to help that child as much as they're going to help a child that looks well-dressed, neat, and clean. So the way they did this experiment was they put a young girl, they put nice, beautiful clothes on her. She was very beautiful. And she's standing in the street, just standing like that, like a beggar, right? But she's just standing there. So people stand and they ask her if she needed help, where her family was. People stop more for her than when the same child is like, basically they put makeup on her to make her look messy, put raggedy clothes on her, and people are not willing to stop for her at that point. With the same girl, they ask her while she's dressed nice to go into a restaurant and sit with people that are eating, and when she looks nice and clean, people are more likely to feed her. But when she doesn't look nice and clean, and she looks dusty, and she looks wearing raggedy clothes, people are willing to dismiss her. So subhanallah, like, I don't know, I was thinking, like, look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is encouraging us this in the Quran, because it goes against what we're more likely to do. It goes against the nature, like that natural inclination of being selfish. Being selfish and wanting to preserve ourselves is a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. So being generous and giving is challenging that. And that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is encouraging us. And He makes that the reason for entering into Jannah. And how difficult is that? Like, how difficult is it to go against our nature? This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this is the real struggle this is the praiseworthy struggle. This struggle that we were talking about, like, I don't know how to use my keyboard right. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. This one, everybody goes through it. Everybody is going to go through the same struggles in life, right? Nobody is exempt from the pains and the aches of life, whatever it may look like, whatever stage it may be at, right? But not everyone will be able to go through this struggle, right? Not everyone will be able to overcome their selfish nafs and give for the sake of Allah, free others, be kind to others, support others. You know what I mean? Like, nobody will do that. So because of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says you're going to get Jannah. You know, like أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ, they are those who are blessed. Those are the people who are happy. Those are the people of Jannah as well. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثُمَّ كَانَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْمَرْحَمَةِ. Then this person became of those who had belief. They did it out of iman. They did it out of, you see how, subhanallah, when Ali ibn Hussein, he asks Abu Sa'id, he says to him, did you really hear that from Abu Huraira? What is he rushing to? He's rushing to the idea that you free a slave, you are freed from the fire. So he believes in that so much, and he wants to be saved from the fire so much. That's iman, right? That's, I believe that Allah will hold me accountable, and there's Jannah and there's hellfire. And I want Jannah, and I will do whatever it takes to get there. And I hate hellfire, and I will do whatever it takes to free myself. So he does it out of iman. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْمَرْحَمَةِ. Now, whenever we seek this path of iman, it ain't easy. It's going to be difficult. It is the most difficult thing. Your nafs will fight you. Your shaitan will try to stand against you. The human shayateen will try to stand in your way. So there will be all kinds of struggles. So you're not trying to just fight your nafs and the shaitan and the people and the society and the culture. Like there's layers of animosity against you to stop you. So you need all the courage and all the perseverance and all the consistency and all the support you can get. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, support one another, encourage one another to be patient, encourage one another to be kind, and to do it to do the things that call for that are kind, and to also have compassion on yourself, right? So okay, so compassion for ourselves. These actions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, these are kind, right? We all know they're coming from a place of love, right? Which we have to struggle to bring out of us, but they're coming from a place of love and kindness. The other thing is, though, sometimes we are able to give others love and kindness, but we deny it to our own selves, right? So to be being compassionate with our own selves, what does that look like? There's also this disease in our society. And in our human nature is that we want to do things perfectly. And if I'm not going to do it perfectly, then there's no point to even try. Because if I'm not going to do the best, then I might as well not do it. And I know we can all relate to it, because this is something that is in us, Allah created us like that as well. And shaitan makes it worse. He'll tell us, if you're not going to be able to pray all of your 12 rak'ah sunnah for that day, then what's the point of just praying that for Maghrib? But one day, let's say you don't have a habit of praying your 12 rak'ah sunnah, and shaitan will tell you on Christmas Day when you're home and you're off and you're just chilling at home and you're reading your books, he tells you oh, I have all this time, I want to pray, and he tells you, what's the point? It's not like you prayed in all the other times. So recognizing that part of us that is not willing to do something because we cannot do a perfect job at it. It's called perfectionism, right? And subhanAllah, it really stands in the way of worshiping Allah. It really stands in the way of worshiping Allah, where we hold ourselves to standards that even Allah does not hold us to, right? So I read this statement where in a book that I recently read, the less people aimed for perfect, the more productive they became. The less they aimed for perfect, the more productive they became, right? So it's we do it, just do it, and don't even ask how, why. Yes, strive for excellence, strive for doing it beautifully, but don't ever dismiss it because you cannot do it perfectly. You see what I mean? And so when we have that type of compassion for ourselves and say, you know what, you're a human being, you're never going to be able to be perfect, we do more. When we have that compassion for ourselves, we do more in the way of Allah. It's not saying if I cannot pray for my sunnah all the time, if I cannot always feed the homeless, if I cannot always pay sadaqah, then what's the point of doing it this way? I'm going to start. And it's when is that ever going to happen? And may Allah give us Jannah because of it. May Allah give us Jannah because of that. Let me see here. There's the concept of let me see here. Okay, so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْمَرْحَمَةِ, right? Like to have compassion for one another, to not dismiss people in their struggle, right? And there is this notion in our communities where, in the way of trying to tell people to do what's good for them, we hurt them. We tell them what's good for them, but we do it in a way that is bitter, in a way that is harsh, in a way that makes them want to run away from the deen itself. Okay, it's devoid of rahmah. It's devoid of compassion for the human experience. Right now, I want to emphasize that, but I also I see where we have taken this, concept to the point where we're rejecting the idea of people. If I were to give you advice and tell you, I know it's hard to pray, but keep at it. You really got to fight yourself, If I say that to you and you say to me, you're judging me, you're judging me, and so this is between me and Allah. Do you see that? Here I am, we are sisters in this deen, we are going through this struggle together, and I am trying to do my part of encouraging you to be patient, right? And it is seen as, it's not, you're judging me, you're not being kind, you're not being compassionate to my struggle, right? And there's also the problem of, we have done it so horribly that the compassion has left the equation of encouraging one another. I hope this makes sense. Please tell me, you guys, it makes sense. Please say something about it, because I would like to also hear how you're understanding this. There's it's like a spectrum, and we are going into extremes where we're either encouraging one another to be patient, but we're doing it in a harsh way without the compassion, and it's driving people away from the deen. And it's or we're not doing it at all, and guess what it does? It also drives people away from the deen, but we're doing it because we're let's be so compassionate to one another that we're leaving the reality of the tests and the obligations are difficult. They're not easy. It requires patience. It requires hard work. We're leaving that part, and we're saying, let's be compassionate to ourselves and to others. So where is the middle ground? The middle ground is here. بالصبر وبالمرحمة. بالصبر وبالمرحمة. We encourage one another, support one another to what is good for us, and we support and we encourage one another with compassion. I hope that makes sense. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the people who followed Isa alayhi salam to be people of compassion, the Christians, right? What is the ayah? وَجَعَلْنَا فِي قُلُوبِ الَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُ رَحْمَةً. We've put in the hearts of people who followed Isa alayhi salam kindness, mercy, all that, those emotions. And we attribute that to Christians. We see Christians always doing missionary work that is, obviously it's missionary, it's called to Jesus, but it's charity work, And this is something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the followers of Isa alayhi salam with. We say it and Allah says it in the Quran, but does that mean that as Muslims we don't have that in us? What we have removed, what's sad is that Muslims and non-Muslims don't associate Islam and Muslims with it, when the whole Quran is a call to it. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to stop sharing because I really want dialogue with this. To validate their struggles first, because that's what Allah did too. He validated the struggle. So I see the validation as compassion. So using both together. Get it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Carrie. Can you guys see my screen, or did I stop sharing? I hope I was sharing my screen the whole time. And I guess what I'm hoping we can walk away with this verse is that how are we being this? How are we encouraging people with kindness and compassion, but also with the reality that the struggle is real and it requires patience? How do I find the chat? Oh, there you go. Okay. Okay. I guess. Okay. أولئك أصحاب الميمنة. Those are the people of the right wing, of the happy people, the people of Jannah, the people that will be blessed. And so this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he basically compiled, like puts together all of the things that take us to Jannah, you know, all of the things that take us to Jannah. And so I'm hoping that, you know, I put in red specific actions so we can all ask ourselves, where am I from here? Where am I with this one? How can I get better at this? And which one do I want to be better at now, you know, in this time of my life? So Mu'adh bin Jabal, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said to him, Ya Rasulullah, inform me of an act that will allow me to go into Jannah and protect me from the hellfire. So the Prophet ﷺ says to him, you have asked about a matter of great importance, but it is easy for anyone who Allah makes it easy for. So one, this thing is important, but it is easy if Allah makes it easy. So can we make dua that Allah make it easy for us? Ya Allah, make it easy for us. Ya Allah, make it easy for us. That we worship Allah, we associate nothing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we offer our salah, we pay our zakah, we fast Ramadan, we perform the Hajj. These are the 5 pillars of Islam, right? And then the Prophet ﷺ continues. He says, "Shall I not guide you to the gates of goodness? Should I not tell you what are the gates of goodness? Like what's inside the gates of goodness, basically?" And he says that fasting is a screen from the anger and the punishment of Allah. That charity extinguishes the sins like the water extinguishes the fire, and that salatul layli fi jawf, salatul abdi fi, so basically that we pray in the middle of the night, qiyamul layl. The qiyamul layl is, what is it? Allah, the Prophet ﷺ, he basically recites the ayah, tatajafa junubuhum, where is it? Their sides, basically their eyes, they wake up from their beds invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of fear and hope. They spend in charity. Why is all of this? They are hoping for the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he says, should I not tell you the root of the matter and its pillar and the highest point? He says, yes, Ya Rasulullah, tell me. He tells him that salah is the highest point. So Islam is the root. Salah is the pillar that holds it together, and the highest point is jihad, that you struggle. Now, jihad was basically, the translation said, fighting in the cause of Allah. And I removed the word fighting because, yes, jihad means fighting with sword and weapons and whatever in a legitimate battle, like war battle. But when we're not in a state of war battle, do we think that it doesn't apply to us? the literal word for jihad is struggle. So am I struggling? Am I going through that struggle? Am I increasing myself? And without, like, obviously, like, there's room and legitimacy for a valid war in Islam, right? And there's been plenty of them that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then how does it apply to me and every single day? You know, is to not forget the real jihad, which is the one that I'm having with my own self on regular and constant basis. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, shall I tell you of what holds all of these things together? And he says, what is it, Ya Rasulullah? He said, be mindful of your tongue, like hold your tongue. So Mu'adh asked the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, like, will I be held accountable for what I say? And the Prophet ﷺ says to him, may your mother lose you. Like, what are you talking about? Like, are you for real? Are you crazy? Why are people thrown in the fire except because of what their tongues have earned? Right? So how mindful am I of what my tongue says? So these are all the things I think we've, you know, in the Quran, like cover to cover, this is what it's talking about. Cover to cover in the Quran, this is what is, you say, what is Allah asking you to do? He's asking us to do one of these things. What is Allah asking us to do? He's asking us to do one of these things all the time. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, then now this is the other path. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, those who disbelieved on our, basically they disbelieved and they denied our verses, our signs. هُمْ أَصْحَابُ الْمَشْأَمَةِ, they are the companions of bad luck, of the companions of misery, the companions of the hellfire. To them, they will be in a fire that will be locking them down, right? Now, these are the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he talks about the reality of the hellfire. What is the reality of the hellfire? What does it actually look like? The Prophet ﷺ says the distance between the two shoulders of the disbelievers in the hellfire is the distance that a fast rider takes in 3 days. So from here we get the concept that people in hellfire, their size is huge, it's enormous. Why? Because it increases the punishment. Right? The punishment in the fire is not only physical, it's psychological. They cannot get out of it, yet they are shackled, right? Why? To deliver the psychological pain, to put them through that psychological pain that they refuse to go through in this dunya. It's like right now, the struggle to fight our nafs and fight shaitan, like, you know, the layers that I mentioned, that requires a lot of internal and psychological strength, right? And sometimes it seems crazy, like it's not, it seems like we're losing our mind, right? But if we don't go through that, we go through the one in the fire, and may Allah protect us from it. In this other hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says that the kafir's tooth in hellfire is as big as Mount Uhud, and the thickness of his skin is the distance taken in 3 days. Why? To make the punishment last longer, you know? Because if it's just this that is being punished, then I would experience it and then khalas, it ends. But this, it goes on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Crying will be permitted for the people of the fire, and they will cry until their tears finish. Their tears will turn into blood. It leaves tunnels on their faces that ships are able to sail in. Again, showing how big their size will be. And the people in Jannah will also be big, you know, but that's different type of big and blessings in that. This is the punishment, this is the torment, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He punishes severely. And I know, like, it seems, and when He rewards immensely, right? But then it tells you, like, how bad was it? How bad was it, like, that you denied and that you were arrogant? Like, to me, what stands out in all of this is that arrogance is so ugly, and that even as a Muslim, I can have it, but to fight it and to always go back to gratitude, just because that's what Allah is emphasizing here. And gratitude that takes us to action and love and kindness and support of others. You know, that's how we truly, like, show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gratitude. Now, this is a dua where, you know, the Prophet ﷺ, he taught us that whoever asks Allah sincerely and insistently to protect him from the hellfire will say, Ya Allah, protect me from this person. And if a person asks for Jannah, like consistently, and insists on it, and like they're so sincere about it, the Jannah will say, Ya Allah, let this person come. So this is a dua of the Prophet ﷺ where he says, Allahumma inni as'aluka al-Jannah wa astajiru bika min al-nar. He would say it 3 times. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He guide us to say it with sincerity, that He guide us to say it all the time, right? That He guide us to say it sincerely, and He guide us to say it all the time, bi'idhnillah. And may Allah answer it for us. May Allah protect us from the fire. May Allah grant us Jannah. Now, last week we talked about personal development, like Surat Shams, right? Like overcoming the negative part of you, right? How do we become aware of our diseases of the heart, our bad manners, our bad characters? How do we become aware of it? So this is one way you can become good at who you are is like obviously ask yourself. That's always important. But then realize that sometimes we might not see what others see, that we might have a blind spot to ourselves and our internal self and our behaviors. And so the exercise here is to challenge ourselves and ask someone who knows us closely, intimately, whose opinion we care about, that is important to us, right? Someone we love, so that we don't attack them, okay? And the question for them is that they tell us one thing about us that they believe we need to get better at. What is one thing that they see as an area of improvement for us? And so I'm going to invite us to ask, but to also not respond, not to try to justify. Yes, ask clarifying questions, but do not try to justify it. Do not try to explain it, and please don't attack the person. Don't attack the person. Just take it. Just take it and think about it and reflect on it and think about what could be true in what they say and what could be not true. That sometimes somebody can tell us something about us, but they're not right, but what is truthful? Many times they are truthful. Are we willing to see it? So there is an ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says those who spend in secret, not in secret, in wellness and in difficulty. When they are well, when they are happy, when they're times of ease, and in times of difficulty, they are spending in the way of Allah. And those who hold their anger, they قَاضِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. Not that they don't feel the anger, they feel it, but they suppress it. They don't express it negatively. وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. And those who forgive and pardon others. Wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin, and Allah loves those who do good, those who excel in doing good. So it wasn't a companion, but it was one of the tabi'een. I can't remember his name. He had a slave that worked for him, who brought him something. He made a mistake. He did something really wrong, right? And when he did this something wrong, and I can't remember what he did, but he did this thing, and he realized what he did and how wrong it was, and he looked at the face of his master, right? This tabi'i, and he said when he realized that he was about to be angry because it was legitimate, he said to him, "Wal-kadhimin al-ghayz." He read this ayah. The slave read this ayah. He says, "Wal-kadhimin al-ghayz," and then the master was he said, "Okay, I'm going to restrain myself. I'm not going to get angry." And then he says, وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. And he says, you're forgiven. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And Allah loves those who do good, who excel, right? And he said to him, I am going to let you free. You are a free man, you can go. And this was him living these verses of Allah. At a time when he was reminded, because he was going to be angry, legitimately, he was going to show the anger, so he suppressed it. So he listened to the words of Allah and truly lived them, And I thought that was so beautiful, and I wanted to share it last week, but I forgot. So I shared it now, and I'm hoping, inshallah, we can start to pay attention to ourselves, And how do we let the Quran guide us in that way? Done. Done, alhamdulillah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. So in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is presenting us that we're being challenged, and then are we surrendered to the struggle? You know, how do I know that I have fully surrendered? How do I know, am I struggling with the surrender? What part of it is easy for me? What part of it is difficult for me? So those are the questions that I gave us to reflect on and think about, and ask ourselves, like, where am I with it? And what is our main takeaway from this surah? So when you think about it, like, whether you write it, I know, like, personally I benefit from writing, but I might not always have the time to write. So if that's something that works for you, do it. If it's just sitting there, verbalizing it, talking about it with somebody, do it. You know, do it and ask yourself, what am I taking from this surah? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Do you guys have any thoughts, questions? Why don't you take 3 minutes and write down what is it that you're taking away from the surah and share it with me, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Lubna. I didn't know you were off today. MashaAllah. Good to see you, ladies. Fatima, Ayan. You guys joined us after we started. Alhamdulillah. So you have 3 minutes to write down and think about what is your takeaway, what it resonated with you the most in this surah, and then I'm going to ask you guys to share it, inshallah. Yes, salam alaikum to your sister. I hope the weather in Philadelphia is not so cold like it is here. Bismillah. Oh, I'm sorry. I hope you feel better, Lubna. لا بأس طهور إن شاء الله. So beautiful. Such a sunny day outside. Okay, go ahead and share them, guys. I would like to see. Oh, I'm sorry, Lubna. Perhaps Allah is giving you the internal ibadah of patience, gratitude. That's a big ibadah. But I know, and dua, you know, dua is big. Like sometimes, wallahi, like I know when I was pregnant and I couldn't like pray so much or just slept a lot, it felt like, oh my God, I'm such a horrible Muslim, you know, especially when you're teaching and encouraging others to do things that you are not able to do. And that's when I realized, like, I was holding myself to standards that Allah is not holding me to. And it was a moment, it was a sweet moment, subhanAllah. It was painful, but realizing that with Allah, we're good. You know, with Allah, we're good. So to be kind to ourselves. We usually like to help organizations that help orphanages, but it was enlightening to know your own family orphanages have a double hasanat. Yes. Yes. I remember, Fatima, like when I first taught Tafseer Juz Amma, the challenge was for us not to give to a charity organization, but to go find out if we had orphan family members. And I hadn't known at the time, but I actually had cousins that were orphans. I didn't know that, you know. So that's what some of the sisters said, like, we didn't even know who was orphan in our families. Let me see. You will be held accountable for everything. Be mindful. Absolutely. It is also empowering to know that we are created on kabad. Whenever I'm in struggle, I will be reminded of that ayah. Yes. 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 May Allah make it easy for us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. And may Allah give us the right support we need, you know? May Allah give us the right support that we need. Thank you so much, ladies. May Allah reward you guys. What resonates with me today is a discussion about how we are either to be patient or grateful. Yes. You know something about that? You know how there is this feeling that many of us have, where when things are going really well, we feel like a punishment is coming, you know? And some people actually say, I'm not going to make dua because what if I get all these good things and then I'm going to be punished? Like, I don't want that to happen. So there's this feeling that we have that is somewhere where if we are in a state of blessings, we don't realize that gratitude only will make it better. Allah will increase our blessings, you know? So instead of waiting for a calamity, to just say, wow, alhamdulillah, I'm in a state of blessing. Ya Allah, I'm grateful to it. Increase me, you know? And He does that. That was something I learned about my own thoughts. And I'm going through a deep struggle right now. So again, this class is what I needed. I'm so sorry, Carrie. I hope Allah makes it easy for you. Alhamdulillah, Allah gave us what you needed. Alhamdulillah for that. You know, I'm really looking forward to some of us meeting on Friday. Inshallah, if you didn't respond to me about coming on Friday for our potluck, it's going to be 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Some of you are coming, I know, and I'm really excited to see you, inshallah. Can I tell you guys about the dhikr sessions? I am on cloud 9, Fatima. Like, the dhikr book is like, seriously, I love it so much, and I don't know what to tell you. So this is what I'm planning to do. I have my slides ready. I'm planning to sit here, my lovely space, and record our first class, just like this one. But then what I'll do is on the student portal that you access, if you missed a class, you will see like this, there's a section in there for the morning and evening dhikr. And so I'll put up the video there, and I'll email you guys, inshallah, once I do that. I'll put the notes on there as well, so you can go through them in your own time. But then I created the WhatsApp group so that we can all, so the way I'm hoping to use the group is accountability, you know, that we do it every day. I'm making like a 30-day plan where every week in those 30 days, we're working on establishing a new dhikr habit, you know? And so part of it is to establish it, to do it. And I'm going to make it non-negotiable. So there is a consequence if you don't do them. you're not allowed to enjoy your technology. You're not allowed to simply surf the internet and go on the internet. I mean, obviously things come up some days and we're in a rush and we cannot sit for the morning and the evening adhkar. But the moment that I get the time, do I go and make them up, or do I just continue with my day? So I'm hoping that that's the way we can do. I'm really excited about it. So may Allah put barakah in it. I'll put up the first video, hopefully either tomorrow or Tuesday morning. Like it has to be done by then, because Tuesday is when I will start sending us messages on WhatsApp about what we're supposed to do and all the supporting materials, inshallah. Imran is home from school, so it kind of made my work slower. I thought I would have a lot of time, but it just means that I have to be structured. And I went back to waking up at 4:30 in the morning, which is amazing. Alhamdulillah. I started it yesterday and it worked today as well. Today it was 6, but it was okay. Still like earlier than I have been these days. I think the first step to living the life we want to live is sleep, and it has been a struggle for quite some time for me. Alhamdulillah. So that's what it's going to be, inshallah. And may Allah put barakah in it. May Allah make it beneficial. The intention is that we learn about the benefits of dhikr, that we learn the meaning of the morning and the evening adhkar, but that we also support one another to do them, to do them with patience and compassion. I think that's going to be my new logo for my new, not logo, whatever, you get it, right? All right, I'm going to stop the recording.